So SAMRO recently celebrated its 60th birthday, and for me, this speaks to just how crucial an entity they are, and that is why I look forward to the upcoming conversation.
Go behind the music with SAMRO and learn all about the Southern African Music Rights Organization's role in the music industry.
We're definitely going behind the music in a conversation with the chairperson, Nicholas Maweni, who's joining us on the line to have a conversation on the overview on SAMRO's mandate, but also the financial results that were concluded during the AGM that was hosted in December 2022. Good morning, Mr. Maweni. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. How are you doing?
Hey, Hlekani, good morning to you as well as to all your listeners. And once again, thank you for having me and, on your show and on the station. Thank you.
Sure. So when I read in one of the documents that SAMRO celebrated 60 years, I was like, what? My goodness, this entity has been added. And it just speaks to just how important you guys are in the work that you do. So just to kick off the conversation, can you explain to our listeners why an organization like SAMRO is still relevant after 60 years in this day in the arts sector?
Yes, we have been going for just over 60 years, and apparently SAMRO was formed, by the way, from the belly of our national broadcaster, SAIK in those days, or SABC.
Yeah.
And in the early days of 1961 or something.
Okay.
And then it only opened its doors, in January, which was in 62. Okay. And the reason why, after so many years, an organization like SAMRO is so important, because we see many people. Remember, everyone who's in the creative space need to earn a living for that.
Yeah.
And even the beautiful music that you've played, even in commercials or even the song that you played now, was created by someone. And that person should be compensated for that. So it is so important that SAMRO, the reason why we exist, we then are the middleman between that creative person as well as yourselves, in this case, who's played music that is in broadcast. And we then facilitate, we come and collect the money from you. First, we license you to give you the permission to play that person's music.
Yeah.
And then once you play it, we will then collect the revenue, which we call it as royalties. And then we'll take a fee, and then the rest is paid to that creative person. And that's how they make a living for their IP, which is their intellectual property that they've created.
Sure. So about 2 to 3 years ago, SAMRO appointed a CEO with the overview to turn around the organization. Can you please paint a picture for us of where SAMRO was then and where it is today, and maybe a scorecard, if you will, of the work done by the previous CEO?
So a couple of things. Look, SAMRO has always had a very interesting and a bumpy sort of past and history.
Okay.
And it's normally sometimes expected to often what I call membership organization. SAMRO is a very interesting business, Hlekani, because we are owned by members. We're not owned by government, by the way. It's a members-owned organization. Mm-hmm. So our creative people, as well as the publishers, so the composers and publishers, own SAMRO. So as part of that, they are then obviously allowed and are entitled to sit on the board. So we appoint composers as well as publishers to sit on the board. So one of the things that we have then done, which you alluded to, was at some stage, people left SAMRO and we're trying to clean up the organization, and we needed a CEO. And I was tasked by the board to go out and find one. Of course, I found someone. It was unfortunate or fortunate for others that it was Mlungu. And I found this guy out in Cape Town, semi-retired, and he was really he used to work for I think the ETV or E News broadcast as a COO. And I asked him, is he willing to join? And he was quite reluctant. He says, look, I'm not the right color, but he says, look, if you're going to support us, we'll do it. He was an experienced person, but needless to say, he agreed to join, and he assisted with the board, with the management at SAMRO to turn around the organization. When I say to turn around, some of the things that we've had, it used to, just in terms of the, we call it the cost to income ratio. That's how much money it costs to collect money. So at SAMRO, it used to cost something like 40 Rand to collect 100 Rand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
To collect 100 Rand, it used to cost 40 Rand.
Okay.
That's how bad it was. And some of the things that we've done, and it was expensive, and there was a lot of processes being flouted, and also there were a lot of infights in the board. I'm sure you must have heard about the issues, about the investments in Dubai, all of those things. So the board put this very, very clear strategy and says, let's optimize the business model. And the second thing, let's find a good way that makes sense to diversify. And also let's bring innovation. And amongst the other things we did put in for the CEO in terms of that was also, please make sure you work yourself out of a job. Find a brilliant COO who's black. Find an amazing CEO who's also black. And that was part of it. And needless to say, when you finish at the end of December, all of those things were in place. We are very proud that at SAMRO we've got even a female or a woman COO, Chief Operating Officer. Her name is Mpho Mafikwe, as well as a recently new appointed CEO. Her name is Nadal. So we're all excited about all these great strides that we've made.
Sure. I'd like to sometime during the month also hear where we are in terms of that cost to collection ratio that you spoke about, because it sounds really crazy. It really does. But for now, can you briefly take us through SAMRO's growth strategy for the next 5 years?
So there are a couple of things that I've mentioned already that we're going to focus on. One, silly chair, I made this audacious target to the management, in fact, to agreed with the board, who says, hey, we want to be a 1 billion Rand business in terms of collection. That's how much money we must collect from you. That's how much money we must collect from anyone out there, whether they are shebeens or whether they are hotels, or even whether, do I dare say this one, Hlekani, whether they are taxi or transport industry that also plays music. Remember, anyone who plays music to a member of the public must pay. So that's what I'm looking for, is to then say, hey, let's bring, hopefully, at least just about 1 billion by 2025. It's a huge target. And that's one thing that we want to do. And also we want to innovate. In this business, innovation is very, very important. It's important for us to be able to compete in this market. In the olden days, everybody used to have a record label and blah, blah, blah. Now nobody has it. The music industry has really transformed, and we want to make sure that we are at the cutting edge of all of those things that are actually happening in our industry. And of course, we also want to diversify, as I've mentioned to you. Yeah, that's part of our target, and really focus on other things that will assist us towards that 1 billion Rand target. Because the more that we do, the more then are we able to assist and make sure more money is paid to our members.
So like many other industries, the arts sector also needs to adjust in terms of remaining relevant in the digital age. So how has now technology affected the way SAMRO works, and what is SAMRO doing to mitigate the erosion of SAMRO's members' earning potential?
So it's an interesting one. I think it's some of the learnings that we can all derive from, the COVID pandemic has been how we all had to leapfrog in technology. Yeah. Because we started seeing a number of people. Remember, many of particularly those who are in the music creative space, they couldn't perform live. Yeah. And so they all ended up having to do shows online. We've now also realized that, hey, it's no longer easy for you to sell CDs or LPs and all of that. People tend to download music. The way in which music is consumed is definitely not the same. Yeah. And many of us can go to a concert online and all of that. So these things have really, really revolutionized the music industry. But somehow we do have found and noticed some of our members, even our very own organizations, the 6-year-old, were still, left behind. One of the things that we've done at SAMRO was then to start implementing a number of innovative things. It used to take something like 2, 3, 4 months, if not 6, for people to join SAMRO, because they'll apply online. Somebody will ask you to fax the form, send it, and then it get lost. We've streamlined all of those processes. People can become a member of SAMRO within 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
Okay, within minutes.
Yeah.
It should be, as long as you've submitted the required documentation. Yep. So that's the kind of stuff that we've done. Even the monitoring of the music and the music. You know, we used to get reams and reams of papers in terms of cue sheets from, either from broadcasters, from yourselves, and we have to go through this in a manual process to find out whose song this is. So, we started trying to automate those processes so that we can pay the right person, so that we don't have duplication. So remember, sometimes, you just Google a Jabulani, how many Jabulanis you're going to get. And then somebody could have how many people might have a song called Willing to Forgive. And then sometimes there's spelling errors in this, and then it picks up the wrong name. So it was absolutely important for us to embark on technology, again, in order to make sure it is easier for us and to make sure that we innovate at all times and become efficient for the benefit of our members.
Sure. So you also released the results of the previous financial year. Can we revisit some of the highlights during the year under review?
Hey, we've had a very good year, notwithstanding the challenges of COVID, as we always say. But, it's been not a bad one in terms of our financials. So, for example, in the financial year that we reported, the collection in terms of our license revenue, that increased compared to last year. We collected just over 515 million. And which was good for us. And then also the amount of money that we've distributed has also almost been a lot more compared to previous years. And of course, it hasn't reached the same numbers as we did before COVID. COVID did have a bit of a dent on this. We are very much keeping an eye as the board, and thanks to the work that's done by management, making sure that the costs are really, really kept and that they are well monitored. But we always caution that we don't want to cut the organization to the bone. You can't always be cutting costs. You also need to invest in the technology that we spoke about. So there will be, sometimes costs will go up because we need to bring some new innovative ideas and things into the organizations to make sure that we are quite efficient. I did mention in terms of the cost to income ratio that we have really reduced that one, and we're sitting now. Remember, I mentioned that it used to cost 40 Rand. Now, if you use the same ratio, it's costing us 25 Rand 90 cents technically to collect 100 Rand.
Sure, those are some of the small, changes that you've made that brings you a step closer to that billion Rand that we spoke about earlier.
Absolutely, but what it does for us, importantly, is it gives more money to the members, because that's what we want to see. One of the things that most people don't even talk about is that I'm sure you get to hear when a member of SAMRO pass. We always pride ourselves as, hey, we do bury our members because we have a funeral cover. We pay out 25,000 Rand. I always want to give this disclaimer. If someone is looking for a 100,000 Rand funeral, we're not going to be able to do that. But we pay what we believe is a decent, dignified funeral cover. We even have a retirement annuity for our members at SAMRO. Now, again, people get this confused. Hlekani, we at times, I think we're sitting with a total membership, I'm talking here in Southern Africa, of just over 100,000 members. But let me give you something about those numbers. 20,000, just over 20,000, are what we call fully fledged voting members of SAMRO. The rest of them are actually prospect members, which means when they die or someone in their families or that they've declared, it's that SAMRO can't bury them because they have not yet reached that earning capacity for them to become a fully fledged member of SAMRO. They are still a prospect. So that means Also, they may not be able to gain and benefit from the retirement sort of annuity program that we have at SAMRO because they would not have earned enough, and that's why they're prospects. Often we find many people, they just would say, yeah, I'm a member of SAMRO. Yes, you are. But we ask particularly some of your listeners, check what sort of a member are you? Are you a fully fledged member or are you a prospect member? Because there's a huge difference. If you're a prospect member, it means you have not yet reached that earning potential where you then can claim that.
Oh, definitely. I definitely look forward to talking a little bit more about those issues in the coming weeks. And I thoroughly did enjoy the level of information that we received on the conversation today. Mr. Maweni, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us, and all the best.
That was a Capricorn FM podcast. For more